Del K. Birch, and this is The Real Spiel. How can you be spiritual but spiritually irrelevant? Can I jump into that real quick? Sunday. Greetings to all my churchgoers, all you folks who go to church on the Lord's Day. I ain't gonna fight with you Sabbath people. I'm just gonna say hello to people. I'm just saying hello. Listen, spiritual but spiritually irrelevant. You knew my favorite Dr. Umar Johnson. You know, he repeats everything. Spiritual, but spiritually irrelevant. I don't understand these days how the teachers and the preachers, the educators of things of God, remain spiritual, but are spiritually irrelevant. This is not a new phenomenon. This is not a new phenomenon. Many of you are not aware to the cycles of spiritual complacency. Let me give you an example of one as I greet everybody and say good morning to you. My best example is 2 Kings chapter 22 verse 8, because I know some of y'all ain't gonna take out a Bible, so I ain't gonna force you to read nothing hard. But it says Hilkiah, the high priest, found, watch this, the book of the law in the temple. Greetings to you, Yvonne. AJ, good morning. I'll say it again, 2 Kings chapter 22 and verse 8. Our best example of being spiritual yet spiritually irrelevant, under the reign of King Josiah, the child king, under his 18th year. 18th year as the king, a holy king, trying to put together a holy kingdom, had a high priest by the name of Hilkiah. Hilkiah found the book of the law in the temple. Now this is my question. What in bejeebus was Hilkiah doing if he just found the book of the law? How does the high priest lose the Bible? How does a holy nation created under God lose the Bible in the 18th year of Josiah? I believe Josiah took the throne at 8 years old. You guys can do the math, right? What would that have made him? 26? That works. At 26 years of age, up to 26 years of age, this godly man, godly king, running a godly empire, trying to renovate the temple and make the temple a place that people used again, because the temple was in shambles, did not have the book of the law. What were they relying on for their spiritual conversations and their spiritual belief systems? Similar to us today. Many of the preachers that you are sitting listening to this morning, Sunday churches, these gentlemen and ladies, are as astute in the understanding of what they are supposed to dispense as a blind and deaf and dumb mute who's been studying nothing for years. You are sitting under the auspices of the ignorant and the spiritually irrelevant, most of you, or the absolutely confused, the misguided. You know, I rather go to an alcoholic, living his life terrible surgeon who knows exactly how to operate, exactly how to take care of the problem I have, than go to a cookie cutter, clean as a whistle dummy who's going to basically have surgery and kill me. Many of you are sitting under cookie cutter, clean as a whistle, nice, high character individuals that don't know nothing about what they're supposed to teach. In fact, what they're giving you, for the most part, are golden rule messages. One of my favorite preachers of all time, His name was Bishop Veron Ash. Thank you very much for posting the scripture. Yep. He told Shaphan, I have found the book of the law in the house of Jehovah. How do you find the book of the law in the house of the Lord? It's like the pastor saying, man, I just found the Bible. Guess what, guys? I found the Bible. But Veron Ash preached a message, one of my favorite messages of all time. I believe it's one of the best Judeo-Christian messages preached in the 20th century. It's called There's Got to Be More. And Paul makes a reference saying, if I can't give you the meatier things because I'm still giving you milk. And so we're still caught up in the taste not, touch not, keep your pants up, what you wear to church level, still caught up in God's trying to get you a house, a car. We're still caught up in the tithe level and the give to get. And you are in a cyclical exchange system with God, where you are trying to have God be like exhibit and upgrade your life. We're stuck with teachers who are more relationship counselors and spiritual guides, and they're more attuned to teach you to how to get a man than to how to get into the third heaven and how to tap into the Spirit of God. You're more invested in pseudo-psychics and partial voodoo men and women, trying to tell you who is around you is not for you, when God is trying to bring you the right type of people and all these types of things, where God is trying to get you by yourself, and He's trying to let you know that all the things that you're worried about, Elijah, that all the people chasing you, you don't have to be worried about that. He's trying to teach you, Gehazi, that all of the gold and the raiment brought by Naaman, that you don't have to worry about wearing uptown shoes. He's trying to show you that you don't have to climb into a tall sycamore tree to get a vision of what Christ is trying to bring into your house. But we're stuck. We are stuck because you know what's done it? You know what's done it to most of us? What he's saying. He says you don't want to hear or receive the truth. A lot of us don't. Why do I want the truth when the truth is too hard for me to listen to? Why do I want the truth when the truth is going to tell me to change? Don't give me the truth. Give me something I can hold on to, preacher. I ain't trying to adjust too much. That's where most of you live. But one of the hardest things I think to face, and the reality of it, what I was going to say was, these preachers are connected to their building and their lifestyle and their legacy. They're building their lifestyle and their legacy, BLL. The building is expensive. We need you to pay for it. I need you to pay for it. The lifestyle is expensive. I need you to pay for it. And my legacy. Most of us go through the scenario where we want to be remembered. I'm telling you, most preachers are more worried about their legacy than they are worried about getting you into heaven. They're worried about, their honorarium services that come around once a month now, and once a month, or the preachers, the pastor appreciation services, and making sure their peers revere them as a holy man of God, and the length of their resume. Geez, you ever seen a preacher's resume? Man, you can get a CEO of a Fortune 500 company and his resume is not as long as a pastor's, as some of these pastors' resume. Their resume, their resume's boring, a lot of them. He gave his life to the Lord at 8 years old, and at the age of 11, he became the assistant youth choir director. He grew there under the auspices of Apostle Jones, and Apostle Jones elevated him to the head of the choir. And it goes on, baby. It goes on to 8 years old, man. I've never seen a I've never seen a resume so long, and they are spiritually irrelevant. Because when you start talking about a 5-page resume for a preacher, you know what? At the end of the day, when you finish telling all his accolades, all the letters after his name, all the books, all the people he's baptized, he still can't walk on water. He still can't wake the dead. He still can't open a blind eye or cause the mute to speak. And he still can't play that building fund by himself. He still needs you for that. I listen to some of these things that these men say, you know. Ministry costs money. You know, Jesus was walking around giving the apostles honorariums and saying, yeah, here you go, here's your per diem. Go out there and win the lost. Come back when your money's done. I never heard that. I never saw that one. Ministry costs money. I've heard that so many times in my life. So many times in my life. You know, everybody costs money. Ministry doesn't cost money. Ministry doesn't cost money. Ministry is free. Ministry doesn't cost a thing. What you are trying to present as ministry costs money. Ministry don't cost nothing. It doesn't cost anything. It doesn't cost anything. If God has put ministry on you, Jonah, they put you on the boat for free. They throw you in the boat. They throw you off the boat for free. If ministry costs something, Elijah, boy, if ministry cost something, God would have been having to pay all these prophets, all these preachers. And every man went to his own house, but Jesus went to the Mount of Olives. That's what ministry cost. Your desire to say, I'm just going to do whatever God puts in front of me. I'm just going to present it the way ever God does with it. Ministry doesn't cost money. What you present as ministry costs money. God bless you, everybody. God bless you, everybody, this morning. 2 Kings 22 in chapter 8. See, so the priestly class finds something that they should already know. And apparently, when you look at 2 Kings 22 verse 8, that Hilkiah can't even read it. He has to take it to the scribes. He doesn't understand what he has. Let's go there now. So you have people with a priestly calling, but they don't have the information or education to understand the priestly calling on their life, and they cannot teach the gospel. And so they require scribes. They require people who are learned to be able to teach it. But watch, how do we divide now? How are we divided between the priest and the scribe? How does the scribe know what the priest doesn't know? That's a very terrible scenario, ain't it? Shaphan the scribe and Hilkiah the high priest said unto Shaphan the scribe, I have found the book of the law in the house of Jehovah. And Hilkiah delivered the book to Shaphan, and he read it. And he read it. The priest found a book that he's supposed to know. Found a book that he's supposed to be astute enough to teach and dispense. And he says, this is too much for me. Let me give it to the scribes. And the scribe read it. It should have said Hilkiah found the book and he read it. And after he read it, he gave it to the scribe. It doesn't say that. It said he found the book and then he gave it to the scribe. It shows that there's a disconnect at the time of Josiah in the priestly order. And when you go on, you'll see that when the scribe reads it, he realizes too, man, the religious educational department is teaching the wrong stuff too. They don't have it. Then they take it all the way to the governing class, the federal head, King Josiah. He reads it and realizes, oh my gosh, we got this whole thing right. So when the priest is off, the teaching is off, the country, the nation is off, how can the church be right? How can we be looking at any of these leaders who is right now dispensing their level of trigonometry, the level of their I would call it pseudo-spiritual edumacation, how can we sit down and actually digest that and say, thus saith the Lord? We have to say, thus saith T.D. Jakes. We have to just say, thus saith Pastor Keon. Every one of these guys has turned into either a relationship counselor or a life coach. I don't need a life coach, because a life coach will not take me to heaven. A life coach is going to teach you how to operate here. A life coach is going to give me strategies to win here. Life coaches are giving me principles for heaven. In fact, those two things are oppositional. They're oppositional, because one is teaching me how to love the world and the other is teaching me how to gain heaven, and they don't agree. They can't agree. They don't have anything in common. However, interestingly enough, they will tell you that, preacher, you got to be relevant, when they are actually spiritually irrelevant. My guy at New Birth, the bishop at New Birth, who wants to start marijuana farms. He says I'm looking for people that smell like marijuana. I'm going to plant marijuana fields, and I'm going to get the guy in the corner to come to church. And they're so busy trying to grow the building. They are so busy trying to grow their audience, their platforms. You hear that word all the time now. Everybody got a platform. Everybody wants a platform. Everybody's being told they have to be responsible for their platform. John Morant flashed a gun on his Instagram, and he had to apologize because he was using his platform negatively. Everything is about the platform now. Everybody has become a leader. You notice that? The minute that a bunch of people are looking at you, you become a leader. That's not true. Your audience does not make you a leader. The depth of your audience, the size of your audience does not make you a leader, unfortunately. And we continue to teach people that when you get a platform, you have a responsibility. And the truth of the matter is, we are responsible for whom we listen to. The people on the platform are going to say whatever the heck they want, but we are the ones responsible for whom we listen to who we invest our souls in. That's why God has given us direction in respect to who do we listen to. Anyway, what y'all got to say? You see, you can't say that about Farrakhan. You can say that about Minister Farrakhan. Listen, I don't want to offend anyone. I'm going to turn this thing up. Y'all ain't bright enough. Sorry, y'all weren't bright enough. I had to turn the display up. In respect to Farrakhan is not my spiritual leader. Farrakhan has nothing to say to me in respect to how to live my life spiritually. Farrakhan is a black leader that is trying to lead black people in a fight, in a civil war against a racial attack that has ensued against us for hundreds of years. Farrakhan has an ideological perspective of his spirituality that I don't share, and I don't seek him for that. But I do listen to some of the things he speaks about our people. But Farrakhan could not lead me spiritually, and that's no disrespect to anyone who prescribes to the Nation of Islam in respect to them as people. I do not agree with Islam. I'm a Christian, and Islam and Christianity do not coincide. I do recognize Farrakhan as a Pan-Africanist, and I have Pan-Africanist leanings, and therefore we can hold hands on that level. But spiritually, we have nothing in common, and therefore, even though Farrakhan and the Nation speaks out of the Bible sometimes, and speaks out of the nation of Islam, out of the Quran sometimes, from the perspective of the nation. Ultimately, we are still saying different things spiritually, but we are saying similar things naturally. So if I can clarify that, Farrakhan is not my enemy, but he is absolutely not my spiritual leader. So I just wanted that to be clear. I don't believe we're at a time where we can pick and choose our allies in respect to the fight against equality and justice for people of melanated complexions. We need to take our allies where our allies present themselves. However, when having a conversation about my spiritual destination, I would not refer to Farrakhan nor his teachings. I just want to be clear about that. And again, I don't want to insult anybody. You have the right to pick and choose who you wish to follow spiritually, even if you are very wrong. I'll say it that way. I am not only a Christian. I am convinced that the message of Christianity is correct. I'm also convinced that the history is correct. I'm also convinced that the anthropology in respect to my people is correct. I am convinced that if I follow it, I cannot fail. I'm convinced of all those things. I've moved past being a believer. I'm convinced. And convincing usually comes from the platitude of facts, and then the presence of God speaking to you and saying, aha, you are here, my son. So me and Farrakhan don't see eye to eye in that particular area. But does Farrakhan speak some things that shake us up in respect to how we see the justice and the positioning of our political trajectory here? Absolutely. Is he a fantastic voice for black people in this era? He definitely is a weapon, but he doesn't speak to my spirituality. So I just want to be clear. I want to be clear, and I want to be balanced about that. Farrakhan does not teach the gospel. In 2023, we don't know this. Salvation is not coming from him. That's a question that my answer would be no. But we do need to find the book again. We do need to find the book again. It has been lost, and it's not been lost on the road. That's not what 2 Kings 22 said. It wasn't lost on the wayside. It wasn't buried in the sand. It wasn't abducted by a foreign power. It was lost in the church. It was lost inside of the temple of Jehovah. In there, they do not read the book. In there, they do not teach it. In there, they do not refer to it. In there, it is an alien, it is a foreign language to them in the church. And why? Why for so many years, almost decades in the life of Josiah? Decades. No references, no accurate references, to the point that when Josiah finds out that they have been doing this thing wrong, oh my gosh, he rents his clothes. He is taken aback. He called for national reform. He's shocked. But we're not. And you know what? Who are the most guilty of us? Those who say we do know. We're the most guilty. All of us that claim to be teachers of the law and preachers of the gospel, we're the most guilty. The most guilty. The most guilty. Let me tell you something. I myself have been asked many times, why haven't you put your church back together? Why haven't you? Because what they are calling church right now, what they are expecting to be the presentation of church, is the building of a multifaceted, multi-million-dollar edifice and entity. They're building temples, but they're not building. I'm not in the mentality at this level of my life to just empty temple, to build a beautiful edifice so I can point to other preachers and say, hey, look at my church. Hey, look at my church. Yeah, you know, me and my people, we built it from scratch, and I got this, and my pulpit is this, and my carpet has, you know, it's this level, and oh, my organ came from 1922, and I'm not interested. I'm truly not interested in just standing there, being the cookie cutter preacher anymore in a shiny suit, with your wife sitting down in the chair, or with you sitting in the chair with her hand on your shoulder. I'm not interested. I've been there. I've done that already. It came to nothing. It burnt up. It crumbled and fell. And I have no interest in it. But I have a lot of interest in spiritual accuracy, in teaching the truth, in serving a God who's real. I have a lot of interest in that. And I also know too that the people will eat you a doggone alive. I also know that too. No leader should be everything for all of us. Know where they benefit us individually and where they do not. And leave it there. Yes. As they say, eat the meat and spit out the bones. I also want to say I give a lot of credit to the men and the women who have put together edifices and who are carrying the torch of keeping houses of worship open, who are, the Bible says, to the elders who rule well, are worthy of double honor. I am very careful not to throw them under the bus, because they've been holding this thing down for a very long time, and I know some by name that are fantastic. You know, Bishop Cross, Bishop Washington, Bishop McCullough, to name three. Fantastic men. Rochester, and Agape Ministries in Florida. Faith Temple and Pentecostal Power of Deliverance. Those three, I can vouch for them. I can't really vouch for the rest of y'all. I'm sorry. I love y'all, but I can't vouch for you. I've been in Toronto. There's some wonderful places of worship too. There's some good places I like to visit. Right. But again, we need less churches and more educational centers where the gospel can be taught properly. I'll say it again. We need less churches and more places where the scribes can teach. I'll say that. Let me say it one more time. We need less churches and more places that people can sit down and actually learn the faith, because people are throwing up churches right now and they don't have the credentials, the calling, the wherewithal, the knowledge, the heart, the skill set, the character, the talent to put people's lives in their hands. You're better off learning that gospel and just teaching your kids in your house sometime. I'm serious. Every Sunday, I kind of like roll the dice, say, okay, where am I going to take these two little girls to church every Sunday? And sometimes I don't. Sometimes I don't think it's beneficial, edifying. I don't think it's edifying. I rather, sometimes we do something in our own car. We sit in our own car and we play, like, you know, the Bible game. Like, we talk about things in the scripture, because I can't have my kids sitting there hearing nonsense for 2 hours. I don't want to go to a church where I'm hearing the gospel in patois. I don't want to hear it. Jesus is a way maker. Hey, he made a way for you. Come on. Let me see 10 people he made a way for. Did he make a way for you, Sister Rosary? That's wonderful. I mean, you need your cheerleaders. But I don't want to hear cheerleading preaching for 2 hours. I also don't want to hear pseudo spirituality. You know, I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear about the dream you had and the dream that caused you to understand and to believe. I don't want to hear that either. I'm not coming for that. I'm not interested in your dream. Okay? You ain't king. I'm not interested in your dream. I'm interested in this gospel. And then I'm not interested in your negative or your strange perspective or predilection to teach me something based on your own bias. I'm not interested in that either. A great teacher can teach even from the place of their bias, and say, I am biased over here, but let me teach you what the gospel says. I will say it like this: let me teach you what the church has taught. Prime example, I am a oneness Christian. I believe in oneness. I believe that that the ontology of God is one. I don't believe that God is a tri-existing being. I don't believe that. I don't believe the scripture teaches us that. I don't believe that the Mosaic law led us there. I believe that it is just poor interpretation, poor humanetics of the early church that led them in a direction. And it was the desire to maintain the deity of Christ that forced the Christian church into a conversation about a three-part deity. That's fine. So when I teach about theology, it would behoove me to not just teach about oneness, but I have to teach about triunity, because 80% of the church believes in triunity. And so I try to explain what the church believes in triunity. But then if you ask me what I believe, I'll say I believe this. So I think there's a level where your bias, still, even though you're biased in one direction, you should still teach all of it. And many times you don't see that. And many people who are so clouded or blinded in their bias, and we've seen this through church history, still teach the truth wrong, if I could say it like that. They can still get the truth wrong. They can still go too far in a perspective that is the right perspective, but still have the wrong information. And that's a very long conversation of how that happens. Because everyone today is so intent on trying to be relevant, they have become spiritually irrelevant. Oh, you can't teach somebody that's hungry, preacher. You can't teach somebody that's hungry. The job of the scribe is not to feed people. It is to teach the gospel. That's why the church has so many pieces and parts. Because Jesus, when he was teaching, had his disciples handing out meals, handing out food, handing out fish and bread. Told everybody to sit down. We understand that. That's the compartments of the gospel. But the gospel is not just feeding people. It's not just, and Jesus said, some of you are only here because of the fish and the bread. You're only here because of the fish and the bread. Some of them only showed up for the healing. They didn't want the message, they wanted the healing. Oh, you can't preach to a man who's hurting. No, that's what the gospel's for. This message is not, this is the craziest part. This message is not so that you will keep your life. This message is so that you will lose your life. That's the hard part about the gospel of Christianity. It is a message meant that you lose your life, because he that loses his life will find it. But he that tries to keep his life will lose it. And that's the message of Christianity. But again, in our desire to be relevant, we have become spiritually irrelevant. We have lost the book of the law. And when the priest loses it, everybody loses it. That's all I got to say. So as you engage, and many of you are there, and many of you are leaving soon, and many of you have heard your message already in our home, and many of you have come from yesterday, re-engage the messages you hear, and think to yourself, is this titillating my flesh, or is this meant that my spirit might touch God and I might hear something I've never heard before? Man, I don't want to just be a person that they're saying, yeah, he amused us, he kept us happy, he spoke to my life. But I'll say it like this: success is the ability to prosper continually in this life and the next. If my accolades don't follow me into the next life, then I have none, and neither do you. I hope you guys have an amazing Sunday. This is Del K. Brereton, spiritually irrelevant. That's not what we want to be. All right. God bless you all. I'll talk to you soon.